All right, so what I have here is the Diamondback cover with the Yakima Overhaul HD bars installed on this thing. I believe this is an option that Diamondback just started a few months ago. They also started offering installation of the track that you put on the bed for this system. When I was installing this, it kind of took me a little longer than I thought it would, and mostly it was just because I didn't really have a video like this to go refer to. I always appreciate when other people have those videos, so I kind of figured maybe now it's my turn until somebody makes a better video. So I went with this setup because, for one, I really like the look of it, but the topper here, I wanted something nice and safe and secure to put tools in the back, or like luggage or strollers, whatever. A lot of times we were keeping that in the cab, which was a bad idea for safety. And my wife also wants kayaks, so having a top rack where that I could take above the roof of the truck was kind of important. So there's the system. Figured I'd give some tips and tricks to kind of make this a little easier for everyone. If you're buying the same setup, before you buy, the most important thing is make sure you get the right thing. You don't want to have a wrong part number. It's going to ruin your day, and it's probably going to ruin somebody's day at Diamondback if you have to return it. So check through that and make sure that whatever you're getting is going to suit your needs for whatever you're going to do with the truck. These are great products, but they're not cheap, so you don't really want to overpay for something you're not going to use. So to kind of get into it here, we'll go ahead and open everything up, and I'll try to give some tips. Before I get started, before you order, one thing that's kind of important about this setup is the tracks. I went ahead and had Diamondback install mine. They did a great job. It was like $95, I think, which is totally worth it, in my opinion. But one important thing about this system, if you're going to do the crossbars here that Yakima sells, these tracks have to be in line with one another. On this truck, they're not. And the reason why is because this truck's just a few inches wider at the front, and they had to offset the tracks just a little bit. So if I wanted to do the crossbar, it wouldn't work out. So if you are going to run a crossbar on there, I would tell you to either check with Diamondback to make sure they're going to be in line, or just plan on installing that yourself. So we'll open everything up here and take a look. So this is what everything looks like when it's opened up. As you can see, as long as you're careful about the placement of your bars, they don't hit each other, which is kind of nice. In here we have the Crossbend 13. I plan on getting a rubber mat to put in the bottom of that just to keep things from sliding around. And when you go to install this Diamondback, there's a lot of videos on this. You start with the center panel, and then you set it on here. You go ahead and put the back panel on first, and then the front panel, and you'll kind of get that situated to where it's where you want it on the top of your bed. And then there's going to be some clamps in here that you're going to tighten down. I think in the directions they tell you to loosely put them on there while you're adjusting where you want the panels, but I didn't really have much luck with that, because I had some tabs that were hanging down underneath the bed lip here. So once you get it situated where you want, I would have somebody sit on the middle portion here so you can get a really tight seal whenever you tighten that down. And also, just in general, having somebody to help you install this is really nice. In theory, you could do it by yourself, but these panels are kind of big and bulky, so I would go ahead and have some help. Also, if you got any projects that you're going to have to do like hauling dirt or rock, you might want to do that before you install this. It is made to come off, but it's not something you're going to want to do very often. So after you get everything tightened down, I would tell you to go ahead and install the shocks on the back panel first. And why I would do that is it makes it easier to crawl under there and work on the panel closest to the cab. Because what you're going to have to do after you get these on is these bars here, how this thing locks up. You're going to have to adjust how deep those bars go into the bed, and you're also going to have to adjust just their positioning here. On the back door here, it's pretty easy to work on just because you're right there. My advice when you're doing these is I would go ahead and just get the depth right. Don't worry about dialing it in too much in terms of how tight it is on this top door on the panel to get a good seal. Because actually when you install your HD bars here, it's going to add some weight, and it'll make it a lot easier to dial those in just right. So after you get your back panel done, you're going to go do the front panel. And one thing I would tell you that's very important is before you install the hydraulics or this here, you need to put your toolbox in, because this toolbox doesn't really want to come out in and out very easily, or if at all, when you have the hydraulics in place. So after you get your Diamondback assembled, one last step I guess here is there's those little plastic panels or little plastic clips. Those are actually used just to keep the locks from rubbing on the bottom side of your bed. On the panel, if you're doing the toolbox up here, I would install those after you install the toolbox, because they kind of want to catch when you're putting the toolbox in. So after you get your Diamondback assembled, you can go ahead and start working on the bars itself. And also, if you want to just go, we'll go ahead and close that up. And so if you go to get everything out of your box, you're gonna have one big box with your Yakima Overhaul HD rack. You're gonna have a smaller one for the bed track kit, and you're gonna have one long one for the bars. The bars on this truck are 68 inches. They actually were inside the Diamondback box along with this smaller box. So if you get your delivery, don't be too worried. When you go to get everything out, don't even worry about unpackaging these things, because these are if you're going to install it directly to the bed without a cover. So don't bother with it. So you'll get all your hardware out. I tend to like to cut each part out of the hardware kit as I needed it, so that way the stuff I didn't need stayed in the package. And you're gonna start by, there's gonna be a flat metal bar that slides in here, and it's gonna have 2 bolts that stick up. So you'll get this little plastic cover out of that smaller box, and there's actually, it's gonna be longer on one side. So you're gonna have to trim this off right through here on this plastic piece, not the cover, but the plastic piece, and then it'll fit flush with the or sit flat here on top of the bed cover. So you'll have this plastic piece, and you'll have the rack itself. They'll fit together, and then they'll come down on those 2 bolts, and you can use a washer and a nut, and then there's like a couple of security things that'll lock here. I went ahead and got these all installed on here kind of loosely, and I went ahead and got my bars on there. Now after I kind of got the bars lined up where I wanted them, I went ahead and tightened these down, and then I tightened this down up here. So pretty great. And then finally, I guess that last step that I kind of told you to save for last was getting your locks adjusted. If you're never going to open this, you can just have somebody sit on top of your panel, and you can tighten these down really tight. But if you're actually going to open them up and use them, you know, having the extra weight of these racks on here to dial that in works really well. This back panel is really easy to get dialed in just because the bars for the lock are just about the same length. But the one on the back side can be a little tricky because you're going to only be able to put weight down on the driver's side when you're closing it. But with that extra weight from the rack on there, it's actually a little bit easier to get that side tighter. So yeah, I hope if anybody gets this system, they find this video helpful. I'm looking forward to getting some kayaks and getting those on the road. Right now I kind of have the bars set on their lowest setting, and that kind of keeps it just about level, or maybe just a shade higher than the cab itself. I might have to raise those up a little bit. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff for the Diamondback in terms of accessories, and then also Yakima. So check it out and have fun.